Okay, guys, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. I'm Seth from the Lonely Solo podcast, and this is episode 86 of my side quest. Now, in this episode, we're going to be talking about Horiguchi being re-signed to the UFC. Now, Horiguchi's re-signed to the UFC following him vacating his Rizin flyweight title, and I believe he was a Bellator champion at some point as well. Horiguchi's had a great career. Had a great career in the UFC flyweight division too, with his only loss being against Mighty Mouse back in the day when Mighty Mouse was ruling the division. He Horiguchi clearly found that he wasn't going to become a world champion in the UFC, so he left, went to Bellator, went to Rizin, claimed world titles there. Really speaks to the level that Horiguchi fights at. He fights at a super high level for him to basically leave the UFC and start winning titles basically immediately, right? But Horiguchi, he'll be one of the bigger names in the flyweight division for sure. There was some talk about, and Demetrious Johnson was recently asked, does he think Horiguchi could beat Pantoja? And he said straight up, he thinks Pantoja would win, and I would agree. I think Horiguchi is probably a touch too old now to sort of match the pace that Pantoja is going to put on him. Nobody's really been able to match the pace since Pantoja's become champion, but an old Horiguchi who's been through a lot of training camps, got at this point a lot of miles on the clock. Even though he's not been through a ton of wars, he's been through a ton of 5-round camps, a lot of title fights, and he's not getting any younger. I think you'd struggle to carry on to keep up with the pace that Pantoja's going to put on you. Considering Pantoja's been doing such a dominant job at flyweight since he's become the champion, right? I don't think they do a Horiguchi v Pantoja fight straight away. I don't think that'll be Horiguchi's first fight back in the UFC. But I do think his first fight should be against one of the major contenders, right? A Brandon Moreno, for example. Like, one of the top guys. I don't think you're going to do a Kaya Sakura and give him a straight title shot. Even a fight against Kaya Sakura would be a good fight, right? Maybe he fights Moreno. If he beats Moreno, then goes for the title shot. Maybe he fights Asakura. If he beats Asakura, then he gets a title fight. But I think he does need to have at least one fight in the UFC before he gets a title fight, in my opinion. Of course, what he done in the UFC, like I said, beat everyone except for one, except for the GOAT of the division in Demetrious Johnson, one of the GOATs of MMA, right? And probably because of his size, Demetrious Johnson isn't mentioned in these talks enough. But yeah, that's a different conversation for a different time, talking about Demetrious Johnson in the GOAT conversation. But that's a really good addition to the UFC flyweight division, Horiguchi. I'm assuming Horiguchi will be fighting at flyweight, because that's likely his easiest path to a world title shot. But I don't think Rizin's weight divisions are the same as the UFC's, where Rizin's flyweight division might be the same as the UFC's bantamweight division, which in that case, if he's fighting at bantamweight, then it gets tough. Because bantamweight in terms of skill is a very, very stacked division, particularly the top 5, the top 10. Whereas flyweight, like I said, at flyweight, he could fight one fight, then get a title shot. He could come in, fight a Brandon Moreno, fight a Kaya Sakura. If he's able to beat those guys, he can get a title shot next. At bantamweight, that's not happening. At bantamweight, you need to put together 4 wins, 3-4 wins. You need to be streaking, really. But that being said, bantamweight in some ways is wide open because Merab has beaten so many of the guys. So many of the top fighters Merab's already beaten. So again, even though in terms of talent it's very stacked, Horiguchi wouldn't need to run through the entire division to get a world title shot. If he come in and say he was able to beat Song Yadong and then a Corey Sandhagen, he's getting a title shot. I don't think he probably would beat a Corey Sandhagen or a Peter Yan or a Sean O'Malley. I don't think he would beat those guys. But if he could, he would get a title shot. Because again, Merab's desperate for new matches because there's no one else there. He's already doing rematches, right? He's already rematching O'Malley. There's nothing there for him. But yeah, it'll be super interesting to see what's next for Horiguchi. A top fighter, won many world titles, and I'd be curious to see where he fights in the UFC, if he fights a bantamweight or flyweight, and if he can get a world title shot. And if he can get the world title shot once he's in there, I don't think the current champions at flyweight and bantamweight being Pantoja and Merab, I don't think he beats either of them. I got on record saying that. I don't think he beats either of them. But both champions desperately need new contenders. So we'll see what happens there. I'd be curious to know, what are your guys' thoughts on Horiguchi being re-signed to the UFC? Do you think he can be a major player, or do you think he's coming back to sort of help build the next generation? But yeah, another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.